Mariners lose 6-3. They fall to 47 and 48 on the season. They've lost two straight and they've lost 2 of 3 in this series against the Minnesota Twins. Let's talk about what happens. I think I said let's talk about how it happens, but honestly, the words are whatever. Ryan Jeffers singles to center to score Matt Wallner on a ball that I personally think a good shortstop makes the play on. 1-0. Fifth inning, Edouard Julien and Max Kepler both homer to make it 3-0. Mariners get on the board in the sixth with a homer by Tom Murphy. In the seventh, Eugenio Suarez ties the game 3-3. It's great to see the power showing up for him again. In the eighth, Max Kepler scores on a passed ball from Tom Murphy to make it 4-3. Alex Kirilloff homers in the ninth to make it 6-3. Mariners can't score despite getting the first two guys on in the ninth. Also, I've noticed I've said to make it a lot lately. I'm going to try and change that up. I didn't do it this time because I didn't remember until we started talking about it. What the crappy baseball over these last two games, folks. And at this time of year, I mean, a loss in April counts just as much as a loss in October. But you're not seeing the improvement. You saw it for a brief second there for those 10 games right before the break. And that was great. But they're right back to playing like a mediocre baseball team. And this is 95 games of it now. 95 mediocre baseball games. Or 95 games of being a mediocre team at least. And let's talk about a couple of positives. It's great to see Suarez driving the baseball. So important. I cannot stress how important Eugenio Suarez is to the success of this team this year. It's massively important. And it's great to see. This is 3 straight games with a homer. He just missed a second homer last night. That's great. And it's not surprising. Way too good of a power hitter, way too much consistent power production from that guy over the last few years to suggest that he was going to continue to be not effective in that way. I thought Luis Castillo pitched really well tonight. Made 2 bad pitches, and unfortunately, they were 2 really bad pitches. The both solo homers were awful pitches. And it might have been a case of him trying to do a little too much, knowing that he wasn't going to get a whole heck of a lot of offensive support. But the 11 strikeouts, he gives up the 6 hits. And again, that first run he gives up, I think a shortstop with range makes that play. Mariners don't have a shortstop with great range, in my personal opinion. Topal was fine. Spire does a really nice job getting that strikeout. Congrats to Devin Sweet making his MLB debut. For those who missed it, as I kind of expected / predicted in the previous Mile Y, I was predicting that one of Ty Adcock or Isaiah Campbell would go down, but instead it was both. Mariners call up Prelander Baroa and Devin Sweet. Talk about Sweet a little more in a second. I thought Munoz's command was pretty bad tonight, but it's inexcusable for Tom Murphy not to make that play. A major league catcher makes that play. And I got to be honest with you too, folks. I was super nervous looking at the box score because if they would have called that a wild pitch, I think this would have been a never-ending show. This would have been, you would have looked at your timer and said, why is this 3 days, 4 hours, and 27 minutes? Because I would have talked forever about how unbelievably bad it was to call that anything but a passed ball. You have to make that play. Yeah, Murphy hits the home run, and that's great. Needed it. Needed somebody to score a gosh dang run. But then 2 other incredibly terrible at bats, and you drop a ball that a major league catcher has to make. That play has to be made 100% of the time. And no, that's not how it works. I know that people make mistakes. Goodness gracious, do I ever. Someone who makes a lot of them, I know that not everybody makes the play. But anytime you don't make that play, you deserve to be called out. And it was a massive play. You have 2 outs. You just had Munoz get that strikeout with 2 outs. You got a chance to go into the bottom of the eighth inning with a tie game, and you just flat out drop the baseball. And as much better as Tom Murphy's been a better offensive player than Cal Raleigh this year. But you can't, he's not a good defensive player. And it really cost them tonight. Mm. A few more things I wanted to talk about tonight. Well, speaking of scoring, the fact that JP Crawford gets credit, I love JP Crawford. I'm so sorry that it seems like I'm bashing him all the time. But to call that hit in the ninth inning a hit is just, what are you doing? Imagine thinking that those are the people who determine ERA, and that ERA and all of that stuff actually determines how much players get paid. And that's not hyperbole, folks. That is how arbitration works. Unbelievably stupid. You hear that? That's a helicopter. And I hope that helicopter's coming to take me away from this baseball team. Okay. The main thing I wanted to talk about first was the at bats in the bottom of the eighth inning after you're down 4-3, and that stinks after a horrific play. But you have Ty France and Tom Murphy and Colton Wong have pathetic at bats in that bottom of the eighth. Pathetic. Every at bat Colton Wong has a member of the Seattle Mariners from this point on is a further proof that this ownership group doesn't care about winning enough. They don't care. They want to win. Don't get me wrong. They would prefer to win. But if it's about winning or paying Colton Wong to not play for them, they'd prefer the other. Winning does not take precedence or whatever the heck words I'm trying to say. Winning is not more important than Colton Wong and Colton Wong's salary. Prove me wrong. Please. Ty France just isn't a very good baseball player this year. For much of 2020, for much of 2021, for much of 2022, Ty France was a good baseball player. He's been bad this year. Almost exclusively, outside of a nice little string where he was getting some doubles. The fact that guy has hit third for most of this year is just so pathetic. Julio had a couple of really bad at bats last night or tonight. Can you tell I'm frustrated? Probably should start scripting some of this stuff so I don't sound like such a nincompoop, but they're all straight from the heart, folks. Really bad couple of at bats, and I really hope he's okay after he got hit, because he got hit in a bad area by a very hard pitcher. By the way, Yeah, he does give up what should have been an error and then a hit by pitch. But then you see how good Duran is. That guy is special. That is a special reliever, and Minnesota should be very fortunate to consider that guy a long-term part of their program. He's their Andre Munoz, and he might be a little better than Munoz. I'd probably rather have Munoz, but can't go wrong either way. I wanted to also briefly talk about, I did not love bringing in Sweet to pitch that ninth inning. Now, this is what they do, right? This is what teams do, is that when you're down a run, doesn't really matter to a lot of teams, and it shouldn't, if you lose by 1 or if you lose by 100. They're all losses. I think it was a mistake to bring in Sweet in that situation. That's a tough MLB debut. That's a real tough MLB debut. And I'm not asking for them to bring in Seawald in that situation. Not I'm saying that bringing in a guy for your major league debut in the top of the ninth inning, it's asking a lot. And is he giving up that homer is not the reason they lost that game, but it changes everything when you're down by 3. Like, okay, so let's say you bring in Brash or someone like that, and you get your scoreless ninth, right? Then it's a 4-3 game, and you got 2 guys on. It completely changes. Like you saw Kelnick with a couple of guys on, swinging for the fences, trying to tie that game up. Whereas when you're only down by 1 and you've got a couple of guys on first base, a couple of guys on base, excuse me, be illegal to have 2 guys on first base. Completely different at bat. Using the whole field instead of just trying to tie this thing up. It's not the reason they lost, but it didn't help. It's very easy to argue that it didn't help. I really thought the Mariners had to go 5-2 on this homestand, and I kind of still think they do, which means for me to call this a successful homestand, I think you've got to win the next 4. Is that asking a lot? Mm-hmm. It's asking an awful lot. But 4-3 will not be good enough, and 3-4, it won't even be close to good enough. In terms of calling this week a success, because you already lost 1 series against a bad baseball team. Bad. Now, the best you can do is get a split here, and then you've got 3 games against the Toronto Blue Jays coming up. Or flawed, but they're pretty talented too, and certainly better than Detroit and Minnesota, in my humble-ish estimation. I gotta be once again, I'll be honest with you guys. Hopefully I'm always honest with you guys, but I was prepared to just boo this team after the first 6 innings. The first, our boys at 5.5. When did Murphy hit that home run? Was that in the 6th? Yeah. The first 5.5 innings, I was ready to just come on here and just yell boo because they were so anemic. Kenta Maeda didn't pitch bad, but the Mariners made it way too easy on him tonight. Way too easy. I was just prepared to boo, 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 boo. Then Murphy hits the home run and it's like, all right, you got one. Then Suarez hits that home run and it's like, oh, this reminds me of the 21 and 22 teams. This is when the good stuff happens, right? And then your catcher can't catch the flipping baseball. I know Munoz puts the runner on third. There's blame there too. But you're out of that inning if your catcher catches the baseball. Someone texted me and asked if that was Miguel Olivo back there, and I giggled. It's not good, folks. It's not good. What are they going to do to make it better? Do they care enough to make it better this year? I don't know if they will or not. What's tomorrow? I believe tomorrow is Kirby against someone. I know Kirby's on the mound. Who's on the mound for the Twins? We've got Pablo Lopez, former Mariner Pablo Lopez. Kind of former Mariner Pablo Lopez. Big game. Big game. They're all big now, folks, but catch the ball, Tom. That's simple. And fix the bottom of this lineup, man. I mean, Castillo gives up 3 runs, and that's 6 innings of 3 run is they call it a quality start. In terms of results, it's okay. Wouldn't it be nice if the Mariners could win a game where a starting pitcher was just okay? Wouldn't that be nice? And again, I'll say he should have only given up 2 runs. A good shortstop makes that play, or at least knocks that ball down. Follow me on Twitter at Crawford_MILB. Sports Sometimes podcast, recording tomorrow with my buddy Kylie McDaniel. That should be fun. Be curious to see what subject he picks. RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. I host that every weekend, and we have new episodes every single day with my buddies Kevin Erickson and Jeff Erickson, excuse me, and James Anderson and Clay Link and a whole bunch of really smart folks. I really recommend checking both of those out. I know a lot of you are really tempted to give up, and I can't completely blame you, but I can't do it. I won't do it. But maybe I should. Maybe I should, but I'm not willing to do it. Prove me right, Seattle Mariners.